Okay, hope you can all hear me. Welcome, everybody. Faces are gradually appearing. Faces are gradually appearing. This isn't the grammar class, so I won't be calling upon people to perform. So you can show yourselves safely. If I'm going to ask people to perform, if that happens, then I'll tell you in advance, so nobody will be picked on. Unless I don't think I've got anyone in the punishment battalion yet, where you get picked on whether you like it or not. Nobody is now. I wouldn't do a thing like that. Not very often anyway. Right. So can you all see my shared screen? The one that says, no, it's the
yes.
verse 4.
Yes, James.
Okay, fine. The reason we will be doing in a few moments, going to verse 16 of the Bodhicharyavatara. The reason I've called up this Eginus lesson 4 verse from last week is because a query has just arisen. Somebody has said, well, if you look at see where I highlight here, there's a trinam there in the Romanized text, and there's trinam there. See clearly there's an M at the end with the virama under it, trinam. Why isn't the M there elsewhere in the Devanagari? Look, we've got trinam there, trinam there, trinam there, 3 occurrences. Well, it's the little dot above the N. See where I'm highlighting there? I've highlighted in gray. Trinam. That little dot where my cursor is now, arrow is now. Don't think you can just ignore little dots. They're there for a reason. It is called the anuswara, literally the after sound, the nasalizing sound. Let me just deal with it now so there's no doubt. And it's relevant actually for the Romanized text as well. Let me just call up my iPad screen. So looking at this word, in its stem form, trina just means grass or a blade of grass, a grass. And it's a neuter noun. Therefore, in the nominative, same as acute nominative and acute ends in trinam. Now, like, as always happens with a word that ends in an M, as the grammatical termination if another consonant follows, it becomes anuswara. So trinam jagat, the last words, I think I'm right, of the verse. Let's look at the last words there where I'm highlighting trinam jagat. So on its own, trinam, and it's written with a full M, and in Devanagari, it would also be written with the full M. That's the letter M. Carefully written sometimes with M. That is ma, to make it a virama, to block the vowel at the end. That it would be, you have to write the virama underneath. These, by the way, this and this, they're the same letter, slightly different styles. Sometimes written like that, rough handwriting. So, trinam. Where you have a word, and if it's written on its own or at the end of a word group, the end of a sentence, it's written with the full M, both in Sanskrit and Devanagari and in Roman script. If, however, we want to say, trinam jagat, a blade of grass is the world. In other words, the world is no more important than a blade of grass. It's still the trinam, but it comes the anuswara, which in Roman script we represent with a dot under the M. And in Devanagari, that is the tr, na. We don't write the full M because there's the next word in the same word group starts with a consonant. Therefore, this there becomes just a dot above it. Trinang, trinang jagat. So it's a G. So it's the same but by spelling a spelling convention, it is replaced by a dot. So when you see that dot there, it is the nasal sound, and the nasal sound will then adjust itself to whatever follows. So it would be trinanjagat. We pronounce trinanjagat, but it is just that M. It's the same anuswara that, for example, the Thais, when they're speaking or chanting Pali, always pronounces a ng sound. Buddhang saranang gacchami, and so on. It's that same sound. And when it becomes this dot there, that is the anuswara. Anuswara literally means the after sound. Anu following after, swara sound, anuswara. Hopefully that is clear. And if it's not clear, it will become clearer and clearer as we go along, because there's hardly a line. There's hardly a line of Sanskrit in Devanagari script that doesn't have the anuswara. But fear not, you'll get entirely used to it as we go along. So where are we? Yes, right to the Bodhicharyavatara. It's going to call up. Here we are. Sorry, looking for it now. Here we are. Yeah, Bhante, yes, you have raised your hand.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you, Bhante.
I have a question.
Please.
Udarasya turnang vitam surasya marran turnam. Viraktasya turnam bharya nihis purhasya. Nihis purhasya.
Nihis prahasya.
Nihispurhasya or Nisupurhasya. So how can we pronounce this one? This visarga.
It is the visarga.
It's Nihispurhasya.
Nihisprihasya.
Yes, that part. Yeah, because after this visarga, S sound comes there. In this case, sometimes visarga would be changed because of the regulation of the sandhi. For example, or sometimes disappearing. So that's why I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Let me just go back to my iPad. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I called up the wrong document. Never mind. So does your question relate to the pronunciation of the visarga, Bhante? You're muted, Bhante. Did your question relate to the pronunciation?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Now, let's take an example. Of Bodhi. And the end of it, the end of the word is pronounced like a little shadow of the E at the end of it, Bodhi. And the Buddha, oops, sorry. So in the nominative Buddha, Buddha, there's a slight shadow of the a, Buddha, after the visarga. However, that is only at the end of a sentence or the end of a verse or the end of a word group. So Buddha on its own or at the end of a sentence or verse, Buddha, Buddha, Bodhi. Where, however, it's immediately followed in that same word group by another word, that shadow vowel is not pronounced. So the Buddha speaks on its own, Buddha, Buddha. But here, because it's followed immediately by another word, that shadow vowel is not heard. Buddha, Buddha pravakti. Buddha pravakti, not Buddha pravakti. So in nisprihasya, if you were pronouncing this word, it's not a word on its own, but if it appeared on its own, just you say ni, the prefix ni, ni, with a little I at the end after the visarga. However, when it's part of the same word or another, here part of a word with another consonant immediately following, you just pronounce the H on its own without the shadow vowel after it. So it's nisprihasya. Nisprihasya, not nihisprihasya, nisprihasya. So I don't know if this has fully answered your query, Bhante. If it hasn't,
yes, I understand, because nihi and sprasha is not separated. It's actually one word. That's why nihisprasha should be in this case, the visarga should not be dropped. Am I correct? My understanding is
sorry,
okay?
It's not dropped. It's there. Nisprihasya.
Yes. Because this is one word, not separated. So that's why nihisprasha. It cannot be separated. The pronunciation should be nihisprasha.
No.
Not nisprasha. Okay.
No.
Yes.
Nisprihasya.
No.
It's the same applies. If you see where I wrote here, Buddha pravakti. Buddha pravakti. The same rule applies where you have a visarga followed by a new word in the same word group. You don't have the shadow vowel. Buddha pravakti. The same rule applies where you have a visarga as part of the same word, nisprihasya. Look at dukkha.
Dukkha is okay because the ka sound is followed.
Yeah, well, the same will apply to the S sound.
Okay.
You may be thinking of another rule where you have a visarga followed by an S, then optionally you can make it a double S.
Yeah.
So, for example,
that's what comes to my mind, actually.
Okay, look at this. The Buddha sits, okay? Buddha sidati. You can optionally change that visarga to an S. Buddha sidati. It's interesting because in older books, I've seen it. It was done. It was a question of typesetters and how people printed things. In older books, you more often found the visarga joining to the following S. You don't see it
yes.
much now. I mean, yeah, you can see it. It's optional. It's not wrong, but it's by far the less common way of doing it. It's correct, but a little bit unusual now.
Ah, I see.
And I'll just, what I'll do is, between now and next week, I'll look at, go back and look at some stuff in the Rig Veda, for example, and see if I can see what they do there. So the answer is, so nisprihasya could also be written as nisprihasya.
Yes, that is what I think.
Okay, fine. The answer is yes, it can be done. It's a little bit unusual. It's not wrong, but it can be done.
I see. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
If I find it anywhere in writings, that's unusual. If I find it in a printed book, I will certainly raise the issue again. So I don't like any of my students to finish up with unresolved queries. Have we fully resolved the question for you, Bhante?
Okay, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm glad to
That's
hear
okay.
it. Right.
Thank you.
Right. Most welcome. So we go now back to Bodhicharya Avatara. Sorry, I just pressed the wrong button. Come on. So here we are. Oops. There we are. Those of you who are looking here at the Devanagari, it's a rather daunting array of vyuha, an array of letters with nothing helpful, and nothing helpful like hyphens, right? But 1, 2, 3, 4, put 4 hyphens here. There would have been 5 hyphens, say that the tatparyatma run together. People who did typesetting or who devised the script in ancient times approached it rather differently from the way I'm approaching it. They didn't set out to help the student. So that's how we write it, and that's how you have to learn it. So these are avishada, balavyuha, tatparyatma, vidheyata. These are all, it's one long compound. Where we would put an or a comma, freedom from despair, comma, an array of strength abilities, comma, dedication and self-control, comma. So in Sanskrit, in the Devanagari script, you don't do that. I just put it in here. So all these commas and hyphens to make it easier. So yes, it does look pretty daunting, this kind of little block of text here. It's avishada balavyuha tatparyatma vidheyata. But like so many things, it gets easier when we break it down. Avishada. Freedom from despair, non-despair, non-despondency. Now, this is one of those cases where avishada might look just a random series of noises, and you're told it means non-despondency or freedom from despair. Okay, if I'm told it does, it does. Once we get right into the word, then the meaning jumps out at us. So it's the root. Sorry, by the way, please, if I forget to show my iPad when I should be, please do shout at me. So sad. The root sad means to sit. It's slightly irregular, by the way, because the present tense isn't sedati, but sidati. It means to sit. Also, to sit, there's an element of sinking there. You're standing up and then you sit down. So vishadata, so vishada, let's see. The prefix, the verbal prefix, generally has the meaning of apart, separation. It can have a positive connotation or a negative connotation. For example, pashyana, in Pali, passana is just seeing. Vipassana, the idea of separation, vipa is the parting the veil, looking through something. So vipassana, not just the passana, the seeing of the surface, but a vipassana, the insight, seeing into, seeing through something. There were and jnana, knowledge, vijnana, Pali vinyana, is more seeing into something, the idea of wisdom, like prajna as well, knowing through it. So but here in this word vishad, it has the idea of falling apart. Vishad, you're sitting and falling apart. The idea is you're kind of finishing up like a heap in the corner. You're collapsing, you're giving up the fight. Vishada, you're sitting back, falling apart. And that is how this idea of despondency or despair is expressed in Sanskrit. So literally sitting apart, sinking apart, collapsing and falling apart. Vishada, the idea of despair, giving up the fight, not trying anymore. You will notice here that there is a dot under the S, it's sad, but vishad. That's just a rule of phonetics in Sanskrit, that where as part of the same word, the s becomes a sh if it's preceded by a vowel other than a or a. To give you an example, kriya is an action, locative plural, kriya su, the su is the locative plural ending. But nara, a man, locative plural, nareshu, it has to become asha, nareshu. It's just a rule of phonetics. It's the same word, so sha alternate with each other depending on the preceding vowel. So vishad is like visad. By the way, that doesn't happen in Pali, which doesn't have a sh. So, for example, to sit down, seated, in Pali, nisinna, in Sanskrit, nishinna. So vishada then is despair, but for this reason, like the idea of falling apart, sinking and falling apart. Then avishada, non-vishada, that's the freedom from despair, not falling apart, not being despondent. By the way, this entire verse 16 consists of a list of nouns, one long compound, and we don't get to a verb until the beginning of 17. So we'll just look at the beginning of 17 now. So all of these things, that's why in the translation I put ... If you see there, to indicate that the sentences are all of these things, ... number 17, should be done, practiced. So kartavya, should be done. So we'll go back now. All of these things, avishada, na kartavya, avishada, non-despondency, kartavya, is to be done. It's a double negative. No, a single negative. Non-despondency must be done is the same as saying you must not be despondent, mustn't give up. So in case you're looking for a verb in verse 16, as we've always taught to do in Latin class, look for the verb first. But anyway, there ain't one in verse 16. It's in the next one. This is just a list. Avishada. These are, by the way, all the things that we should be doing. Avishada. Then balavyuha. Bala means strength. Any kind of power. It's just an ordinary word. Bala, strength. This leads me to my favorite example of the difference between the long and the short vowels. Sorry, I've just written these here on the iPad. Bala, strength. Bala means a child. Often used to mean a fool as well. So entirely different words, no connection between them. So avishada, balavyuha. Vyuha just means an array, just an assemblage. So the balavyuha, a strength array, a strength assemblage. In other words, have developed different kinds of strength. Not just, don't have one strong point. The idea is developing different kinds of strength. It's translated an array of different strengths or abilities. Tatparya, you see where I've paused, is it tatparya plus atmavidheyata, which by Santi becomes tatparyatmavidheyata, run into two words, run into one. This word para it's actually cognate with the English word far. Sorry, iPad again. Para, cognate with far. Sorry, Mr. Technology, I'm looking at my screen. Here we are. It has quite an array, quite a vyuha, you might say, of different meanings. So it's a slightly tricky word to try to grasp all at once. To give you an idea of what I mean, I'm going to call up, I don't do this very much in these classes, but I will on this occasion, just to show you. This is the digital version of the Monier-Williams Sanskrit Dictionary. So this is para. I'm afraid I can't enlarge this. I can move it, but I can't enlarge it. So para, basic meaning, yeah, that's the first meaning, Monier-Williams, far or distant. Cognate with our word far. Cognate also, by the way, from para with the vowel lengthened, para means the further shore, the far part of the river. So please, nobody who's ever heard me say it, say prajna paramita. It's not, it's param ita, prajna param ita. Ita, gone, param, to the far shore. For prajna, wisdom, param ita, far shore, gone. That's why the wisdom gone beyond. Anyway, back to para, far distant or remote. Previous ancient, all of these meanings, better or worse, and then other or different from. So a para is another person. And also you get the further as a neuter noun, that which is chief, that which is, for, in other words, your furthest object, the far thing that you're aiming for. So it's one of these tricky words. It's got a wide accretion of meanings. So that means your aim or your objective. Don't try and take all this in now. Ooh, hang on. I've just received a message from Odin. So if I can enlarge it by press Control plus auto shrink. Let's see. Let's see if I can. Control plus. Is that Control Shift? Ooh, goodness me. Odin, thank you. All these years, I never knew. It works. Wow. Thank you, Odin, for the first time. Brilliant. Goodness me, reached the age of 77 without knowing that. Thank you so much. So, para, far. And then by extension, if you're something para, you're devoted to it. You have that as your far object. So in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, Krishna is saying that people must be devoted to me. Mat, meaning me. Mat para, having me as their objective, as the goal that they're, the mat para. Mat, by the way, is just the combining form for me. Mat para. If you're tatpara, it means you are devoted to that. Tatpara. If you are devoted or very careful with your meditation, you can be dhyanapara. Devoted to the Dharma, Dharma para, means having the Dharma as one's objective, like the far shore that you're aiming for. Now, as a quirk of this word tatpara, literally devoted to that, it then is very often used as a word. The tat loses its meaning, so tatpara just means devoted on its own, sense of devotion, being able to be devoted to something. So that's how it's used here. So if somebody is tatpara, he is devoted. You'll see, I'll bring back the screen, oops. It becomes tatparya. Mark well now, you'll hear it many times in the future. And you constantly see it in Sanskrit. And constantly in Pali as well, though slightly less regular in Pali. If you have an adjective, so tatpara is an adjective meaning devoted. Tatpara. A sense of dedication to something. You've got to be dedicated. In other words, he's saying the meaning of it here is not just picking it up and casually playing with it if you feel like it, and then putting it away if you don't. It's a sense of devotion to that objective. So tatpara is an adjective. We now want to make an abstract noun out of that adjective. Like from devoted as the adjective devotion, or devotedness as the abstract noun. We can make this abstract noun in one of several ways. We can add a ta. In many cases, you add a ta to the end of a word, as in here, atma vidheya ta. And this ending ta is the equivalent to the Latin tas, from which we get iti. Probity, veracity, a lot of these words ending in iti, making ity, making an abstract noun that's cognate with that ta. Now there's another rather more complex and slightly sneaky way of doing it in Sanskrit. There's no way around it, you've got to learn it. What you do, you vriddhi, strengthen the first vowel and put a ya instead of the a at the end. So tatparya,
Notepad.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, that's what I've been writing, you see. Tatpara, tatparata. If you remember what I just said. So the ta cognate with the Latin ending tas or ending ity, veracious, veracity, mendacious, mendacity. So tatpara is the adjective. You make an abstract noun then by the vriddhi of the first vowel. Vriddhi means the strengthening of the vowel. Here make the a into an a and the final a to a yes. So tatparya. Tatparya. We know the word Mahatma. As in Mahatma Gandhi, Mahatma, great soul. The great soul Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. Great souledness, making an abstract noun out of it, the quality of having a great soul, great souledness. We do the same. Strengthen the first vowel, ma, hat, and instead of the a, mahatmya. It also means kind of big-heartedness, broad-mindedness as well. So Mahatma, having a Mahatma, Mahatma, having a great soul, Mahatmya, great souledness. Tatpara, devoted, Tatparya, devotedness, devotion. We'll see it occurs, it's a very, very frequent thing. You'll get used to it as you go along. So, Balavyuha Tatparya, come back to, so Avishada, Balavyuha Tatparya, then Atma Vidheyata. Now, to see where I've paused it here, Tatparya and Atma as part of different words, we have to join them here. That's why I put the circumflex over the A, to indicate that it's two vowels, the vowel of one, the end of one word coalescing with the vowel of the following word. So tatparya, atma vidheyata becomes tatparyatma vidheyata. So in this line here, sorry, this one that I'm highlighting in gray, that is separated out simply to help you. Atma vidheyata. How have I described Vidheyata here? Vidheyata, self-tractability, yeah. Again, the word becomes obvious and easy if you look into the word. The root di, meaning to, sorry, iPad. The root di equals, it means to put. The Latin punere, in fact, puni, puni. Now, di is to put. It's actually cognate with the Greek thesis. Thesis is you're putting something down. The thesis is what you place down. Now, vi, we have this verbal prefix now, vi, meaning apart. That's the basic meaning, apart. Now, the reason I gave you the Latin, look at dispose. Pose meaning to place. Dispose is exactly vidhi. If you dispose of something, you make your dispositions. You make your disposition in the sense of the arrangement. You might be well disposed towards a person. It's the way that you are, the bits of you are arranged in a certain way. Your disposition, the disposition of the troops, where you're putting the different troops. That's exactly vidhi in Sanskrit. Vidhi, disposition, how things are arranged. So etymologically, it's not the same, but the meaning of vidhi and dispose, exactly the same meaning. Now, the future passive participle, sometimes called the gerundive, that which is to be disposed, it becomes vidheya. Vidheya, to be disposed, requiring to be disposed. Vidheya ta, now we have this ending ta, making an abstract noun. Vidheya ta means disposability, the ability to be arranged in a particular way. Vidheyata. So the Atma Vidheyata, Atma meaning self, self-disposability. In other words, a flexibility of what you are, an internal mental flexibility, the ability to control and dispose of yourself, like a general disposing of his troops, telling each person what to do, how to act. Atmavidheyata, and one translation is self-control, but it's more than self-control. It means the control in the broader sense, not just self-control if you're angry or something. Control in the broader sense, how to dispose of yourself, how to dispose of your mental faculties, how to vidhi, dispose, arrange your reactions. So that is atmavidheyata, so attractability, an ability not to just react to what's happening, but the ability to say, right, this is happening, this is how my mind will be. That's the atmavidheyata. Back to our text. Paratma samata. Now this actually is just, if you analyze it bit by bit, it becomes beautifully simple. I'll go back to my iPad now. So I've written Paratma samata. I mentioned a few minutes ago when we were discussing this, polysemic means having multiple meanings, this polysemic word para. And one of the meanings of para is other, as in self and other. In fact, para and atma are often used as opposites, self and other. So this is para plus atma, para atma, other and self. The word sama well, this is one of those lovely words that has come into English. It means same. It's one of those words of very little change. So we say same. Used to be older English, we'd have pronounced it sama, but it's sama in Sanskrit. So same. So para atma samata. Para other, atma self, sama same, ta, sorry, long a, ta ness. So other self-sameness. Other self-sameness means being able to treat others and yourself in the same way. It's their way of saying that do as you would be done by, do unto others as you would that they did unto you. When you're dealing with other people, treat those other people the same as you would treat yourself or as you would want to be treated. So para atma samata becomes paratma samata, other self-sameness. This chaiva, this is from cha plus eva, by santi becomes chaiva. Cha and eva, just the emphatic particle, as well as, not just and, chaiva, chaiva as well as, and on top of that chaiva, paratma parivartanam. Now, here we've got the paratma samatha, literally other self-sameness, treating others as you treat yourself, or as you want to be treated yourself. And we've got the same paratma here, the same paratma, the other self, parivartanam. Means the exchange. Go in slightly into soft focus here with this vart. Imagine if you periverting, let's invent a word that doesn't exist, though it would be cognate with parivartanam. If we had it in via Greek and Latin to English, we're periverting or paraverting. Peri as in perimeter, the around measure. Periverting would mean exchanging, turning over, exchanging oneself for another. Like the vert, the root vert in Latin is the same as vrit and vart. It means to turn. Invert, turn upside down. Pervert, to turn away, meaning turning away from the true path. A convert, to turn somebody towards you. Extrovert, somebody who's turned outwards. Introvert, somebody who's turned inwards. So the parivartanam means turning around, exchanging, parivartanam. Paratma parivartanam would mean other self exchange. Para atma vartanam. So in other words, when dealing with another person, the ability to change places with that person. You're speaking to another, but put yourself in the place of that other and deal with him as you would want him to deal with you, or just putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. Para atma parivartanam, other self periverting. So avishada balavyuha, what I'll do, normally we can go through the entire verse and finish it off before getting to the next one. We'll just do the beginning of the following one to kind of round off the sentence, not the whole of it. How much time have we got? Yeah, we're fine. So avishada balavyuha tat paryatma vidheyata paratma samata chaiva paratma parivartanam. Wait, Naiva avashada kartavya. So I'll just write this now on the iPad. By the way, just as cha eva becomes chaiva, so na plus eva by santi becomes naiva, which is what we have at the beginning of verse 18. So it's na, eva, and certainly not indeed, avasada. Sorry. Na, eva, and not. So all of the qualities or characteristics that are set out in verse 16 as a list of things, a list of good qualities, what you should be doing, but not avasada, and then kartavya. Kartavya is to be done, must be practiced. I've explained vishada, the idea of sitting apart, collapsing and falling apart, vishada. A similar kind of meaning is avasada, from that same root sad, to sit. Ava is actually the prefix ava is cognate with our English word off, meaning away from or off. Ava. So avasada would mean sitting or collapsing and going back, going away, sitting away. In other words, not standing up and fighting, but avasada. Oh, can't manage this anymore. Walking away from it. So we talk about walking away from something in a pejorative sense, walking away from a duty. In Sanskrit, they talk about avasada, sitting off, exactly the same meaning as our walking away. And the idea is here, it's like walking away from the fight, walking away from the struggle. Defeatism, if you want a one-word translation, defeatism gives the idea of it. But of course, you'll see the meaning better if you see into the Sanskrit word itself, the avasada, the off-sitting. Go into soft focus and imagine if in English we said off-sitting, sitting away, sitting it out, not standing up and fighting, going back and collapsing, finishing up as a heap in the corner. So na eva avasada, and not all the previous things in verse 16, what you should do, na eva, and not, and definitely not avasada, and not, sitting away from it. So na eva avasada becomes naiva avasada. Kartavya. Okay. Kartavya. That's the gerundive or the future passive participle, just meaning to be done. There are 3 ways of forming these future passive participles in Sanskrit, all very common. From the root, from the root kri, meaning to do. There's kartavya, you can have karaniya, also have karya. There's also kritya as well. They all have much the same meaning. Those of you who know the Metta Sutta, in Pali, it begins with karaniya, karaniyam attakusalena. Exactly the same meaning. In Pali, it could be katabam, and karaniyam would have exactly the same meaning. Sanskrit, kartavyam, karaniyam. So all I can say is, sorry, chaps, it ain't my fault. There are just 4 different ways of doing it in Sanskrit. That's it. The Metta Sutta, remember the Metta Sutta starts with karaniyam. Karaniyam attakusalena, yantam santam padam abhisamecha, and so on. So naiva avasada kartavya, and not defeatism, kartavya is to be done. So going back to, I'll then ask for, I'll just read it out, and if there are any questions, please do ask. So, avishada balavyuha tatparyatma vidheyata paratma samata chaiva paratma parivartanam. So if there are any queries arising out of that, I'll be happy to take them. But equally, if there are inchoate embryonic queries in your mind, of course, we can always raise them at the next class as well. Yes, Bhante. Yes, please unmute, Bhante. You're still muted, Bhante. We can't hear you. Bhante, we can't hear you. Unmute, Bhante.
Okay, I couldn't unmute myself. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Okay, right.
Okay.
Before you ask your question, Bhante, before you ask the question, it's actually one of the reasons it's so useful. You ask more difficult questions than anybody else. And no, seriously, it's really useful for me. You get kind of easy questions coming, but
Okay,
you.
excuse me. So sorry. Okay.
No, don't be sorry. It's actually useful for me because it really impels me to work harder. You know, to try and keep a couple of steps ahead of you. So I'm just dreading the day when you start asking me a question where you're ahead of me. Anyway, yes. So please don't make this one too difficult, Bhante.
Yes.
Have some karuna for me. Metta and karuna.
Yes, that's okay. Yeah. Thank you for providing a very good verses. Very tough to understand, actually. So my question is, Paratma Samatha Chaiva Paratma Parivartanam. Actually, this is very difficult to catch what it means in short. What does it what is comparing here? What is Paramatma Samatha and what is Paramatma Parivartanam?
So you mean what is the exact difference between them?
Actually, I couldn't imagine what kind of things these two are. So what is Paramatma Samatha? What is Paramatma Parivartana?
Okay.
So yes.
These two expressions, according to my understanding, and I do not pretend that my understanding is the only correct one. That's why I welcome other people's views as well. As I have understood it, these Paratma Samatha and Paratma Parivartanam are pretty much two slightly different ways of saying the same thing. Because Paratma Samatha, other self-sameness, treating the others as being the same as you, as no different from you. Paratma Samatha, self-other sameness, holding others to be the same as you, not different people, or certainly not different types of emotion and feeling. And Paratma Parivartana, self-other exchange, putting yourself in the position of another. The same kind of idea, exactly as if you just translate it literally into English. Self-other sameness, treating others the same as yourself. Paratma Parivartanam, changing places between yourself and another. It's the same kind of idea. And I think this is one of those cases where, we don't try to say, right, this is the correct translation in English. That's really not what we're here for. But if you just go into the Sanskrit, just try and feel it in Sanskrit, it's pretty much the same kind of thing.
I see. Thank you. So Paramatma Samatha Chaiva Paramatma Parivartanam. So and it follows Naiva Vasadah Kartapya. So that means we should not compare the others and I are same or others and I are different or something like that. Actually, it's very difficult to catch what it means.
Yeah, I think the idea is the way you think about people and the way you treat them. I want that, he's blocking me. The idea of I want that, I'm more important. So in other words, not making your own wishes, Paratma Samatha. Yeah, Paratma Samatha would mean putting yourself and others on a level, not regarding your own needs and wishes and desires as more important
I see. Yes.
is more the
may I-
Paratma Samatha. Sorry, yes, Janet.
I don't know if
Yes.
this relates at all, but it sounds very similar to the early part of Tonglen, which is the Tibetan understanding. So you see yourself as the same as others, and then whatever suffering you see other people having, you take on. So you can see you're exchanging yourself for the others. You're taking their suffering onto yourself. So it sounds like a little bit, this is coming from the Bodhicharyavatara Shantideva, right? Isn't this text that we're reading?
So the Paratma
Which is like
Parivartanam, that would be very, very close to that. That would be maybe
very
even
close.
maybe exactly. Maybe the word you said in Tibetan.
Thank you.
Means the same as that.
Very appreciative.
Yeah.
So the taking another suffering on yourself. Can you say the word in Tibetan again?
I cannot bring it to my head. I don't have the Tibetan text with me, but it just seemed to me it was similar. I only have looked at the Sanskrit text. I'm not really a Tibetan reader at all.
Right.
But it just sounded a bit like that. So
I think you're dead on there. We have one native Tibetan speaker with us, I think. Is there any? Are you able to assist Wang Du? Okay, I promise not to call on people, but you are a native Tibetan speaker. If you're able to assist with this,
okay.
Is there the Tibetan word that Janet was talking about for?
Oh, Tonglen.
Tonglen,
Yes,
it's called Tonglen.
Tonglen.
I see.
Yeah. Tonglen. Tong
I
means
see.
to give, and len means to take. So give and take. The simple translation, Tonglen. So you are giving out your happiness and everything, good things about you to the others, and you are taking others' suffering. So it's called Tonglen.
Okay.
One way of practice Bodhicharyavatara when you are doing meditation, it's called Tonglen. The Janet was saying the word Tonglen.
Tonglen.
Tonglen, yeah.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much indeed for that, Wang Du. That's
You're
really,
welcome,
really
James.
helpful there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
In fact, so helpful. I think we'll try and get a bit more Tibetan into these classes. So if anyone wants to raise the point like Janet just did, please do. I think it's very useful. So I'm just wondering.
I was just going to say one further comment. I think it was maybe Stephen Batchelor's translation of the Bodhicharyavatara that uses the Tibetan, and sort of maybe it points out whereas Tibetan, one of the translations points out the Tibetan version versus maybe just a Sanskrit version. So you can sort of try to isolate those differences. I haven't looked at it myself, but I have the text. I have the text in a pile waiting to look at.
Don't say anything till I put my headphones back on, or I won't hear you. Just hang on. Okay, so I've got the translation by the Padmakara translation group, which is the Tibetan one.
Yes. That's
which there's a.
That's right.
Perseverance. Okay, the virya they've pronounced as heroic perseverance. Hang on.
Oh yes, I have it here. Yeah.
798. The verses aren't arranged in this. Oh yeah. It's put practice the exchange of self and other. So the verse 16 that we've just done, here it is the Padmakara from the Tibetan. Do not be downcast, but marshal all your strength. So Balavyuha could be an array of strengths, also marshalling. It could be both. So treating Vyuha, not as an array, but as a verbal noun, marshalling, arranging, bringing them all together. Marshal listening, take heart and be the master of yourself. Practice the equality of self and other. That's the Paratma Samatha, and then practice the exchange of self and other. And somewhere there's a note. Okay, and so they discuss these practices are discussed at length in chapter 8. Okay, so we'll come to that later.
It seems that one is a principled approach and the other is the actual direct experience of being with others. It's a bit like, say, you know,
Yeah.
the way you can feel sorry in principle for something you've done and actually really feel sorry for something.
Just say you're sorry and really be
Yeah,
sorry.
there's a difference is to actually being sorry because you've exchanged yourself and others, you know.
Yeah, so you can be nasty to somebody and just say sorry, but
Yeah.
with the parivartanam,
Yes,
you've actually put yourself in his position. You say,
Yes.
"Wow, well, that was a horrible thing I did. Now
Yes.
I'm feeling what I did
yes, exactly.
because I've done this parivartanam."
Yes,
The para-atma yeah.
yeah.
Mm. So it's not just okay, sorry. Wow, it hurts. I'm in pain for what I did.
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. So now that's excellent. I think we ought to bring some more Tibetan into this. This has been great for me anyway. So
James, could I just ask, it's Chris Allen, could I just
please,
ask,
Chris, yes.
yeah, could I just ask about another meaning of para, being supreme? Because I'm used to from my years as a student of Advaita Vedanta, the Hindu contemplative tradition,
Yes.
the Sanskrit expression para-atman, the supreme self.
The Paratman, Om Namah Paramatmane.
Yes,
Homage to the
yes.
Paramatmane, the dative.
Yes.
Yeah, that is okay. Let me just bring back here we are. Where did I put my, here we are. Para, far. Now, Parama, the ending ma there makes it a superlative. Exact. We have it in English, a shadow of it. Outer, utmost.
Yeah.
Furthermost. So this ma is the parama, the most far out, the furthermost, therefore supreme. So it's not paratma, but parama atma, the parama, the furthest atma, the supreme atma.
Right.
So the parama here is simply the superlative form of the adjective of para as an adjective meaning far. So furthermost, therefore outermost, supreme.
Right. And just to follow this up a bit, James, I'm probably going to open up a bit of a rabbit hole here, but
I love rabbit holes.
I've got a very interesting article from the Theosophical Society in America in front of me, and basically it's saying that there seems to be a lot of confusion between the Buddha's teaching of no self, anatta or anatman in Pali, I believe.
Anatman and anatta, yes.
Yeah, and the Hindu Atman, the supreme self, and this really makes a case for saying that the Buddha never intended anatta to mean there's no supreme self. He was talking about there's no experiential or no everyday or personal self. And this is an area of huge confusion between the two different religions, if you will.
I certainly agree. It can create confusion because if you look through, say, in the Buddhist, the regular Buddhist, the old scriptures, the Nikaya, the Majjhima and the Digha and the Anguttara and so on, when anatta and what anatta is being it's being described in detail. It's like, you're told if you have an emotion or a thought or a feeling, say, this is not myself. This body is not myself. This thought is not myself. In other words, what you're being, if I've understood it correctly, it's that we are being told not to identify this body as myself, these desires are myself. Then we say, I am hungry, is just a linguistic trope that we use. It doesn't mean that my Atman is experiencing hunger. And in fact, there was one Tibetan, Chime something Rinpoche, I forget his name now, Chime Khyentse Rinpoche at Chanteloube. I've heard him describe the anatta doctrine as that we're being cautioned against attributing selfhood and permanent internal selfhood to things which do not have it. And he gave this wonderful example of the rainbow. Now, a rainbow, in a way, you can say it exists. You can take a photograph of a rainbow, it'll come out on your photograph. But what is a rainbow? It's not something self-existing. The rainbow is simply, there's light falling at moisture at a certain angle, creating refraction, and then photons hit our retina and creates an image of a rainbow in our brains. There's all these kind of things going on, but where is the rainbow? No, it's a sensation that we have and we call a rainbow, but the rainbow doesn't have any self-existence. It's just a phenomenon that is there because of other things being in a certain position at that time. And so this analogy of the rainbow, he said, when we're being taught about anatta, we apply this to ourselves, apply it to our feelings, to our anger, our desires, our fears. They're like a rainbow. See, they're real, they're there, but it's very rainbow-like. These are just sensations that appear because other things are in a certain position with regard to each other, just like the sun and the atmospheric moisture, and the and what we see in our brains. So I absolutely agree. As far as I have been able to understand it, the doctrine of anatta is not intended to deny the existence of the Paramatma. As we know, the Buddha neither affirmed nor denied. That wasn't the job he was doing.
Thank you.
Thanks for raising that, Chris.
Yes.
Well, I'd better cut and run now, chaps. I've got the Pali session beginning at 2. And look forward to seeing you, hopefully, in a week's time. Okay. Bye to you all. Thank you. Thanks. Bye. 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 Bye.